Hi, I'm Mark Humphrys, and in this video I want to talk about the origin of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So, as presumably many you all know, the origin of the conflict in its modern form dates back to the origin of Israel in 1948. So why was the setting up of the State of Israel so controversial? Because after all, Jews had lived in this region for a very long time. So let me read out a couple of extracts from books in the last couple of centuries, which may surprise you, especially if you've bought into the narrative of all of Israel as a sort of all of Israelis as a recent arrival in the region. So there's a tour of the Middle East, the Holy Land, as most Westerners would have called it in those days, in 1695. And in 1695, the report in Gaza was that 550 people, just 550 people lived in Gaza in 1695, 50% of which were Jews and the rest mostly Christians. So despite centuries of Islamic conquest of the region and of living under Islamic rule, many parts of the region were majority Christian, and pockets of the region certainly were majority Jewish. We can move on to, in the same 1695 tour, in Nazareth, in Jerusalem, there were 5,000 people who were mostly Jews, described as mostly Jews, and some Christians, and no Muslims mentioned at all, even though, of course, there were Muslims living in the region. Then we move on a bit further to 1868. So in a tour of Syria and Palestine, published in 1868, Jerusalem is described as 50% Jewish, 50% Jewish and 25% Muslim, and then some Christians. In the Encyclopedia Britannica in 1911, it quotes a survey. Jerusalem, it says Jerusalem is 67% Jewish at that point, 22% Christian, and 12% Muslim. So these numbers fluctuate over time. There are Jewish majorities in certain cities and certain areas. There are Christian majorities in certain cities and certain areas. My point is not that there's a very simple story over the entire last few hundred years. My point is that the story is complex. And so the idea of setting up a Jewish majority region in the 20th century was not that outlandish, not that outrageous, and so why on earth did people oppose it? So I'm going to look at that in the next video.